The news is just not stopping today for the Montreal Canadiens, as in a recent press conference, Kent Hughes spoke out about the truth behind the Sean Monahan trade and a lot of things that went into making this deal happen. You guys are going to want to hear a lot of what he has planned, because some of it is maybe a little unexpected for Habs fans. We're going to cover all of that, plus a little bit of a later reaction to the trade on this episode of Habs Digest. Without further ado, we're going to jump right into this. And obviously, as all of you know, the Montreal Canadiens acquired a first-round pick in 2024 and a conditional third-round pick in 2027 from Winnipeg in exchange for forward Sean Monahan. Now that 2027 third-round pick is actually contingent on the Winnipeg Jets winning the Stanley Cup. So if they win the Stanley Cup, Montreal gets that pick. If they don't, Montreal gets nothing, as far as I understand. So it's a bit of an interesting thing. Maybe Kent Hughes wanted to toss something else in there. But regardless, obviously getting a first-round pick for Sean Monahan, who you got in the first place with a first-round pick, is insane. Something I don't think any GM has maybe ever done. Kent Hughes with a masterclass again. And although we're all going to miss Sean Monahan, we got to admit that this trade is a huge win. And if we transition a bit to how the Jets will use him from this article from Arber, he actually believes that we're going to see Sean Monahan on the scoring line with Cole Perfetti and Nikolai Ehlers, which honestly, in my mind, would be an amazing fit for Monahan. And look, I understand, it's tough to see Monahan go. It's tough to see him probably succeed with another team. But if he's able to play with guys like Perfetti and Ehlers, I think that would just be an awesome spot for him, an awesome fit for the Winnipeg Jets. Montreal gets a good return. I think this could very well be a win-win as long as Monahan doesn't get hurt for the Jets. And that's another thing, Kent Hughes really took advantage of his timing on this deal, and he really spoke out about that in today's press conference, so we gotta go over it. First things first, he said the teams that were in the race for Elias Lindholm shifted to Sean, so it accelerated things. Kent Hughes on the impact of the Lindholm deal on the timing of trading Sean Monahan, and that is big. I mean, it's kind of obvious when we think about it. Of course, Elias Lindholm was the best center on the market by all accounts, even though Monahan has a higher point production. It is what it is. Lindholm doesn't have that injury history. He's coming off a 40-goal season very recently, so, made sense. But once he was gone, all those teams are going to want Sean Monahan, and I think it was actually a brilliant move by Kent Hughes to kind of look at that scramble and say, this is actually the perfect opportunity to trade Sean Monahan. Now, yes, there's still over a month before the trade deadline, and he could have waited a little bit longer, but in my opinion, with a guy like Sean Monahan, a guy who's had a questionable injury history, we've basically been crossing our fingers, biting our tongues, just hoping that Sean Monahan wasn't going to get hurt before the trade deadline, just like what happened last year. And sure enough, he didn't, and Kent Hughes was able to swing a trade for a first-round pick plus an extra conditional third-round pick for Monahan himself. So, the fact that Kent Hughes kind of said, yeah, they shifted to Sean, and I took advantage right away, it's just brilliant, right? It's such a brilliant move to, in my opinion at least, to take that time and to move him before, again, any risk of anything happens. Again, could he have maybe gotten a bit more? Could we have seen maybe a bigger bidding war and a return that was maybe closer to the Lindholm trade? Maybe, but at the end of the day, only Kent Hughes and staff know what the Montreal Canadiens were offered. Maybe we'll hear some more stuff coming out in the next few days. But that's not the only thing. Of course, Kent Hughes also took some time to say, Sean Monahan was a fantastic person, a fantastic teammate. He was a person and a player who was very important to us. Of course, we've seen those videos of Kirby Dach saying, Sean Monahan, you're my favorite player ever. Sean Monahan saying that he believes he's going to be friends with Slafkovsky for life, saying they talk to each other every single day. It's extremely sad to see him go. But he's gone. It's really unfortunate. Could he come back in the summer? Very possible, maybe. But we got to focus on this trade and some other aspects that Kent Hughes talked about. And this right here, I really believe is one of the biggest reasons that he wasn't afraid to pull the trigger right now. He says that they are confident Alex Newhook will be back soon, answering a question about the weakened center depth now. And to go along with that, not only is Alex Newhook back soon, Kent Hughes seems quite confident that guys like Mitchell Stevens and Lucas Condotta can come back up to the team and really eat those bottom 6 minutes. Because if you look at the Montreal Canadiens now, of course, with Dach out for the season, with Dvorak out for the season, with Monahan traded away, with Newhook still on the IR, the only two NHL level centers are Nick Suzuki and Jake Evans, the first and fourth line centers from last year. So when you look at the Habs depth, you can call it Mitchell Stevens again, who definitely did a serviceable job. Was a little surprised he didn't get claimed on waivers, but then again, maybe not. You never really know with guys like him. But center depth is going to be a little bit of an issue, but what this tells me, this to me reveals a big truth behind this trade, is that they really plan to give Alex Newhook a long leash at center. Like, this to me reads like, all right, Alex Newhook, you are going to be a center for the rest of the season. There's no pressure. We just traded away Monahan. There's probably going to be some more deals, and we're probably going to talk a bit about that a little later in a video today about some more deals that Kent Hughes semi-alluded to, so we'll get into that later, so you'll want to tune in when that comes out. But yeah, I think this means Alex Newhook has, there's big plans for Alex Newhook to sort of be a, well, if not a short-term center for at least the rest of the season, I think they want to build him into a longer-term center, and while we've seen him thrive more at the wing spot, it kind of suits his play style a bit better, and his face-off percentage, just like Kirby Dach, is really not that great. I think 39% this year. I think playing him at center for a long period of time and really just allowing him to actually settle into it with no pressure of anyone kind of, shifting these lines around like we had with Dach, maybe going to center to the wing, Monahan center to the wing. We played Newhook with at the center with Anderson and then Slafkovsky. As long as we don't see that line again, I think I'm pretty happy. But I think this is huge for Alex Newhook, and because Alex Newhook, as a lot of you guys know, is one of my favorite, if not my favorite, Montreal Canadiens. And to see him have a nice long leash at center, to see what he's able to do in a much larger sample size, I think is going to really, really benefit the Habs. So I think if Newhook was even, probably 3-4 weeks away from coming back, then I don't know if this trade gets done as soon as it did. To me, this reads like Newhook is going to be back very soon after the All-Star break, and maybe they can take up Stevens and Condada, and they can just scramble for some lines for a few games before Newhook is back. It seems like it's more on the order of a couple games after the All-Star break as opposed to maybe another month on the shelf, which is amazing news for all Habs fans everywhere. And again, I think that's one of the big reasons the Monahan deal got done when it did. So now let's look at the draft. Let's transition to the draft, and if the draft were to start today, Montreal would now have the 7th overall pick and the 30th overall pick. Now, again, that 30th overall pick is not set in stone. I'm not even sure if that's updated. I think it might actually be 27th. I might have taken the wrong time, but still, Montreal at this point in time, I believe as the recording of this video, have a 6.5% chance of winning the draft lottery to move up to number 1. Of course, Chicago and like San Jose and these other teams near the top there. But Winnipeg, that says 30th, but I believe it might actually be 27th. Regardless, late 20s around there right now. And Winnipeg, they're in a tough division. They're 3rd in the Central, I believe, as the recording of this video as well. Yes, they got Sean Monahan, and I think they're going to go on quite a decent push. But, if they're one of the teams that's maybe a surprise elimination in the first round, that draft pick goes from late 20s to, late teens, right? Or maybe even early 20s. This first round pick, yes, obviously, I think Kent Hughes kind of did a good job of taking a condition for the future as well. If Winnipeg just goes on a crazy tear and wins the cup, Montreal gets an extra pick. I think the worst case scenario this year now is if Winnipeg makes the playoffs, makes the conference finals or Stanley Cup finals, and loses. That would be the worst case scenario for Montreal fans. At this point, I'm seeing a lot of Habs fans rooting for the Jets to miss the playoffs, and yeah, that would make the Habs pick way better. However, I do want to see Monahan do well, although they still have Scheifele. There's a lot of mixed feelings about the Winnipeg Jets for me right now, but all in all, if they end up missing the playoffs somehow and they go on a really, really bad losing streak, which is probably unlikely, but maybe the more likely scenario, them getting eliminated early in the playoffs, that pick could pay huge dividends. And having 2 picks in a draft, and Kent Hughes has not shied away from moving draft picks in the past. He's sort of insinuated that he might be willing to move 2024 draft picks to maybe gain some more young players or maybe a bigger talent. So to me, these 2 picks, as of now, I think they might be on the move, but we'll discuss that again at another time in the future. So it's just, I think, just to summarize all of this, masterclass. But there's a lot of factors that went into this trade happening when it did. Alex Newhook being ready to be back and all the attention shifting to Monahan right now at the exact right time before there's any chance for him to get an injury. It just all came together perfectly. Kent Hughes capitalized on it. 2 first-round picks and Sean Monahan for 2 years for free at the end of the day, plus a conditional 3rd. I don't think it can get any better than that. And for those of you who are wishing for a return more similar to Elias Lindholm, I get it. For sure, seeing that return definitely got our hopes up for one of Winnipeg's maybe top prospects, but wasn't meant to be. But a first-round pick, unprotected, without retaining any money on Sean Monahan, well, that's a win in my book. But that'll do it for this episode of Habs Digest. If you enjoyed, leave a like, comment, subscribe to the channel. We're on the road to 15,000. If you're still watching at this point in the video, you just watched that whole thing, hit that subscribe button. We got videos every single day. I've been your host, Josh Gosse. I'll catch you in the next one.